Hi guys, and welcome back to another painting tutorial. So today I'm going to take you through how I painted this Ultramarines banner. So as you can see, I've already applied MACRAGGE blue. Now I did do this via airbrush, however you can of course just apply this by brush and just do a couple of thin coats of that. Next up, just using an even mix of KANTOR blue and ABADDON black, I'm just going to begin shading all of the recesses and around all of the other details on the banner. Next up, using an even mix of MACRAGGE blue and CALGAR blue, I'm just going to begin by highlighting the entirety of the banner and also just doing some small scratches across the banner as well, just to give it a sort of weathered appearance. And as always, I'm just using my Raphael 8404 size 30 brush for this one. So as you can see here on this part of the banner, I'm just working my brush gradually without actually moving it away from the miniature, just moving it left and right. I just find that doing that sort of style on cloth, it gives it a more sort of natural textured appearance as opposed to just doing really straight lines. But of course, that doesn't have to apply to the entirety of the banner. For example, around the edges of the banner, if you just want to keep them nice and tidy, that always looks good as well. But as you can see, just also adding in some stippling. Again, this is just to give it that sort of textured and you know, sort of weathered appearance. Once again, just continuing up with those highlights, I'm now going to use CALGAR blue on its own. So for the most part, really just following over the previous highlight and also just adding in some scratch effects as well. Next up, for the laurels of the banner, I'm just going to base coat those in with CALIBAN green. Now usually I would have painted in all of the non-blue areas with black at this point, but considering we already shaded around all of those details with the KANTOR blue and ABADDON black mix, I didn't really feel as though there was any need to. Next up, for some of the icons, I'm just going to base coat in some KHORNE red. And now moving on to ZANDRI dust. So essentially just for the bottom right icon here and also for the purity seals and for the scroll as well. Next up, I decided to just freehand the chapter symbol. I decided to keep essentially all of this in. If you aren't too interested in seeing how I freehand paint the Ultramarines chapter symbol though, you can of course just skip on ahead to the next steps. But yeah, really wanted to just include this part. So as opposed to using just, you know, a really bright white, like, you know, your heavy titanium white or white scar, for example, I decided just to use the more slightly grayish white, that being CORAX white. As yeah, I just wanted the symbol to be a little bit more subtle. So as you can see, it does take a bit of time, just getting that initial outline and then just reshaping it as well. Considering the sort of curved design as well of the banner, it is quite difficult to get it absolutely dead straight. But again, as I always mention in my other tutorials, I always recommend practicing freehand painting details like this because it certainly will improve your painting skills over time. And now, as you can see, there's obviously quite a bit of correcting to do, so I've just decided to go back to MACRAGGE blue, and I'm just going to begin tidying up the chapter symbol now. So comparing this chapter symbol to other freehand Ultramarine symbols that I have done, I wasn't 100% happy with how it ended up looking. However, again, always worth putting in the extra work and the bit of practice just to improve your skills. And with the amount of detail on a banner as well, it's not going to be that noticeable if it's not, perfectly symmetrical, for example, or if it's a little bit sort of thicker than the symbol usually looks. But again, just one of those things, in my opinion, really worth just putting in the extra work for. So just to mention quickly as well, I'm not sure what happened, but I did unfortunately lose just a minor bit of the footage for this tutorial. So as you can see, I've already applied on the outer icon design. That was just a base coat of MECHANICUS standard grey, just the one in the center there with the laurels. And now just moving on to shading all of the ZANDRI dust, just using an even mix of DOOMBULL brown, LAHMIAN medium, and water. So again, just a 1-1-1 mix. And now shading the green laurels and the icon with ABADDON black, LAHMIAN medium, and once again water. So I really wanted all these shades to just be quite subtle. And now moving on to highlighting all of the purity seals and all of those other beige details as well with an even mix of ZANDRI dust and USHABTI bone. Just ensuring that we leave some of that DOOMBULL brown as well. And now moving on to the red icons, I decided to keep it pretty simple, just using some WAZDAKKA red. So as you can see, mostly just some edge highlights and just a minor bit of stippling as well. And lastly for the red, I decided to do one last highlight there of Wild Rider red. Now to begin highlighting all of the laurels, I decided to use WARPSTONE Glow. So you may need to lay this up a couple of times, so just allow a little bit of dry time, but by the time you come round between each leaf, it should be well and truly dry to do a second layer. And now just to finish that up, I decided to do a final highlight of MOOT green. And it's really important with this step, just to make all of those details stand out a little bit more, just to try and do really clean edge highlights, ensuring that we leave some of that CALIBAN green and WARPSTONE glow. And now for all of the beige details, I decided just to finish off with USHABTI bone. So mostly just some edge highlights for this part, and you can also work some stippling effect across it as well. Again, just aiming for that sort of weathered appearance. So next up, just working on the center emblem, I decided to try and sort of go for a little bit of a non-metallic metal appearance. I was pretty happy with how it looked by the end. I wouldn't say that it necessarily looks like non-metallic metal, but essentially just sort of trying to follow along those sort of steps. So as you can see, just using some DAWNSTONE and essentially just gradually building up some highlights on the most raised areas, and then just trying to get some really sharp edge highlights as well. And next up, essentially just following over all of the same methods as mentioned before, I'm just going to use some ADMINISTRATUM grey. And lastly, just going to use some heavy titanium white. And as you can see, I just wanted to include just a little bit more of the details of this emblem. And as you can see, I'm just also mixing in a little bit of the white with the ADMINISTRATUM grey. I'm certainly a million miles away from being an expert by any means toward painting non-metallic metal or even non-metallic gold. But again, just a really good opportunity to get the practice in, and I was pretty happy with how it looked at the end. But yeah, to my understanding, it's really one of the key things is to blend the colors as much as possible. But again, yeah, I really need more practice with it. But yeah, certainly had a lot of fun painting this banner. So now moving on to the text. So I looked up sort of Gothic text and well, quite a variety of text before I went ahead and decided to freehand paint this, as I wanted to try something a little bit different. So I highly recommend checking out Gothic style texts, or even, you know, of course, one classic one to go to if you are painting Ultramarines would be Roman style text as well. But there are so many out there, there's so many cool ones to choose from. But it's always good to have a reference in front of you, especially if you don't have much experience freehanding text as well. Obviously, you know, if it's on a smaller purity seal or something like that, you know, doing the sort of scribble text, you can certainly get away with it a little bit more. But on a larger scale, such as the scroll on this banner, it's definitely worthwhile just doing even just a little bit of research in trying to discover, you know, some really cool text that would look awesome on the banner. Another thing to consider as well is how much space there's going to be between the text that you're writing down on the scroll and, you know, essentially from the start to the finish. So, for example, I decided to just paint out MACRAGGE for this banner. And initially, as you can see, I'm just doing really quite thin lines using the CORVUS black. So it's really important that you have this fairly watered down. And as you can see as well, I'm just creating a little bit of space between each letter. That way, by the time I get to the end, I can go back and, you know, sort of thicken up the letters a little bit. And also add little flicks at the end of some of the letters as well, which you will see once I get to the very end of the text that I'm painting at the moment. So just going back to what I was talking about before, as you can see here, just at the end, there is still a reasonable amount of space left at the end of the scroll. And again, I wanted it to look quite even from start to finish. So I'm just doing some simple flicks at the end of the E to essentially extend the length of the letter and make it look even across the board. Next up, just continuing with the text, I'm just going to do the Ultramarines symbol using MACRAGGE blue. So again, fairly watered down, and just layer this up a couple of times. It's going to be really, really small, as you can see, so it certainly doesn't matter if it's not, you know, absolutely perfect. And then just going back to the CORVUS black, just to add in some more text. One thing to mention as well, when painting text, just try your absolute best to keep it as even as possible on a line-to-line basis. And now just going back to heavy titanium white, I decided just to add some little eagle symbols just across the red down the bottom of the banner here. So these are relatively simple, again, because they are so small. You can essentially get away with just doing, you know, a slight curve, meeting it in the center. And if you want to add a little bit more depth to it, you can certainly add, as you can see here, through the center, just making it a little bit thicker, as though that's where the body of the eagle is. And then, of course, the wingspan as well. And lastly, for the other red square here, I decided just to do a simple checkered pattern. So just doing one end white, and of course just leaving the red in the other two squares. So as you can see, just getting a nice simple clean vertical line, and then just working in a horizontal line as well. And then it's just a matter of filling in those squares with the white. Now, just to try and keep them as even as possible, it is important to just try and, as you can see here, position the miniature or the banner in which you're painting this on. Keep it comfortable and just gradually work in those thin lines, and then you can just fill out the squares. And with that, the banner is now complete. So I hope you found this tutorial useful today. I had a great time filming this one, and I have plenty more tutorials coming in the near future. And as always guys, if you would like to support the channel, the links are in the description below. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but if you're in Australia, the USA or the UK and you're intending on buying any of your hobby needs, use those links in the description below, as it does support the channel. So thank you very much. I will see you again in the next one.